5pmnation.com.
Previously on Angry Drunk Tales.
I'm going to cut him out if I have to destroy Ewing Oil to do it. Another drunken slut who ran away.
Be angry.
You make me sick.
What do you like in your coffee? Bourbon.
Me write angry emails.
Well, you have a very perverse way of looking at what's right and wrong. Town drunk. Time to get lost.
Episode 23, the and Matt Summit Part 2.
Me still angry. Me continue to write long, rambling, drunken emails. Me continue to be angry over incident several weeks ago. Me have emotional intelligence of 5-year-old child. Me bitter and frustrated with myself over being drunken 300-pound tub of shit. Me undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Me write angry emails. Me hate everyone.
Angry Drunk Tales. Episode 23. I am Matt Connerton.
And I'm Jen Coffey.
And we left off with July 23rd. We are still on July 23rd because here's another big, I don't know if twist is really the right word actually, but it could be considered a story arc. This is from that same evening. Once again, opens the door, not literally, so much as metaphorically.
In Edwardism.
To a conversation.
In other words, via email behind a computer screen.
Hey, actually, before we go any further, I want to kind of, because I want to add on to my thought that I was having at the end of the last episode, and then we'll get to our dramatic reading, because I've got a couple of good ones here from it. And we'll get to our plot point. But do you think maybe, because again, we're dealing with someone, as I say in the intro, with the emotional intelligence of a 5-year-old child. Do you think he fears being close to people? And then part of what's wrong with him mentally is he then has to drive them away if he's getting too close? Because I was saying before, in the last episode, it can't be a coincidence that the one and only time we actually do something truly social with sit down and watch a movie with him, we finally give him what he wanted, which he clearly, it was always obvious, he was lonely and needy and desperately wanted our attention and our friendship. And then the one time we give in and actually make time to watch a movie with him, that same night he turns on everybody and then can't let it go, refuses to let it go. I wonder if there's something in his brain that's afraid of being close to people. So now, because we had finally given in and kind of, it was like taking the next step in our friendship with him by actually sitting down and watching a damn movie with him, that something in his mind went, no, this I can't handle this. This is like becoming a real friendship now. I have to push them away.
Maybe. There are those people out there that, you know, when they finally get close to somebody, there's a fear there that they can't get past.
A vulnerability or whatever.
Yeah, and they sabotage themselves.
Yeah. And maybe
that's what it was.
Maybe that's at the root of all this.
I mean, that's why I've always said it was like a Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
And it's not something I've seen often, and not something I ever expected to see again. As somebody to have the ability to be so nice on one hand, and on the other hand, absolutely cruel.
Right. I wonder if it has something to do, assuming that what he says about his childhood is true, maybe it had something to do with his upbringing. It sounds like his own family was pretty mean to him. I don't know.
But you know what?
But who knows what's true with him either.
Yeah. Well, and did you ever notice how many different jobs he's had? I mean, he's been an oil rigger, and a chef, and a sous chef, and a stock boy, and homeless, and really, really rich. And
I'm glad you mentioned that he worked on an oil rig. It kind of justifies the Dallas opening. I hadn't even thought of that.
yeah. I remember that was one of the jobs. I mean, there was just this whole series of bizarre jobs that have nothing to do with each other in a way, but I don't know, just weird. And definitely, maybe that kind of fits into your theory as well, because that would explain moving around so much, not being able to stay in one place for very long. And now he has a lease until April unless he finds somebody to take it over.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what his issue is the idea of being in one place for too long. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
He was bizarre anyway. I mean, who repaints their entire apartment on their own dime? I mean, who does that?
Well, he did say that he was expecting to give him a break on the security deposit.
Yeah,
for doing
woohoo,
that.
whoopee, $200.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even remotely
I know.
close to, I mean, the insanity level of over the top.
I thought it was strange that he had time to even do that and building his bar when he supposedly has all these projects and all this work to do. I've never
But he
seen.
was picking up extra shifts then at his second job, so maybe there was some kind of a connection going on there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Well,
So that was when we started seeing Friday nights show up.
oh yeah. Well, let's we'll get to our next dramatic reading. Excuse me. All right, I'm ready. Here we go. If this is something you want to talk about in person, then we can. But he did a lot of things even before that that I felt I should have been asked about first before he just decided to do them on his own. Like giving guitar lessons at 12 a.m. a few times. And yes, I was a bit put off too when 3 or 4 pieces of furniture that I was told about turned into an entire 4-bedroom house of furniture, and no one, especially Jesse, was the least bit interested if I wanted to get any of my own furniture. Seems no one ever asked me if I wanted to buy any of my own furniture for a place I took a lease over for the day I ended up moving far more stuff than I had been warned of previously. To me, that felt a little like I was being taken advantage of, by the way. Even when I mentioned how much stuff it really was, Jesse basically looked at me like I was an asshole. And when the couch got here and my back was sore and I was tired because I hadn't slept in 2 days, the guy I had just met said to me, "Can I get a real man over here?" How else can you possibly take that as anything but disrespectful? I know what his mother sees, but I have a long list of these comments myself and actions where I felt like I was the guest. Like everyone else had a say but me in the place my name was on the bills on the lease, and this goes for Angela too, by the way. You can, Jen can, and Jesse can say all day long what he said, or what he intended to say. But I know on these events what was said and what was done and how I felt, by the way. Maybe, just maybe, during those days, my increased drinking was a direct result of feeling disrespected on a regular basis. As recently, Adam and 2 other employees recently mentioned that my drinking habits have gone back to normal. That's just me saying. 2 people in my house on a fairly regular basis made me feel uncomfortable as hell, and the one person I should have been able to say that to, or one of them, would not have listened even if I had said something. Sorry, at the end of the day, a guest in my house needs to act respectfully. Even if they think respecting adults is silly or having manners is outdated and such, they are still a guest and need to act like one. Something you had pointed out previously, classic alcoholic move there, blaming others for his drinking.
Oh yes, it's everybody else's fault that
Yeah.
they've increased their drinking habits.
We made him drink.
Yes.
Someday, if he needs a liver transplant, it will be because of us.
If the pancreas doesn't give out first.
Yeah.
He's definitely got mush brain set in.
Oh, yeah.
That's evident in his writing.
And I don't think he ever increased his alcohol intake. I think he was always a drunk. He went from being a happy drunk to an angry drunk, but he was always a drunk.
So nice to not be around that.
Yes. And then there's, he did send me, I'll go ahead and include this, a shorter email. This one's just one paragraph. He wrote, I haven't. That's why, in fact, I thought of asking your intentions before I go too far in looking for roommates and such. My door is open to you and or Jen because I know a very large part of this problem was not of either you or Jen's making. The night of the fight, that was mostly of Angela's making. Even after I left the room, she kept it alive and such. As far as my feeling disrespected by her son, I had when I went to Brothers last night, decided that I should make a few rules as far as guests are concerned. But Jesse had already moved out, and Jen was already apoplectic about that. That was not my intention. I was just saying I was feeling very, very uncomfortable in my own house because of what I saw as an ever-increasing ability for Jesse to do stuff without asking first. Sorry, but that's just what it appeared like to me. I am not family. If he was going to have an overnight guest, he should have asked. If he was going to unplug my stuff, he should have asked. But long before that, there were things he had done where he had just assumed it was okay. This is not his mother's house. His mother lived with other people. Sorry, but that's just what it is. Do you think I should explain it to Jen, what I explained to you tonight? Oh. Nope, sorry. Okay, that came after. Okay, so I skipped ahead. Forget I read you that last sentence. That's in a follow-up email that's very short. So, then
So you had your second summit.
Then our second summit occurred. He came out of his room and came knocking and wanted to talk, so I went out there. And it was probably a 90-minute conversation. And it was a lot of retreading the same territory we had gone over in our last summit. With a twist, Angela came walking in. Angela came home. And she walked in, and I had said, I kind of suggested that she hang out and talk with us, and it was and she did, and by the end of it, everything seemed to be cool with the three of us. Of course, that would never last, but, you know, her and seemed to kind of come to an understanding and whatnot. It was all very nice, but the entire time I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I hope Angela doesn't let anything slip. Because at that point, we've already made up our minds. We have our plan. We know exactly what we're doing. The only reason I was going through this whole dog and pony show with, again, as grueling as it was to sit there with him and go through all this again and rehash everything and try to placate his ego about it. And the only reason I was going through it was to try to keep things cool until we were able to leave. That was it. And then I'm hoping Angela doesn't let something slip. But she seemed to get it because she sort of played along too. She didn't, because
she's not stupid. She wasn't born yesterday.
Right, and she
works 2 jobs.
Yeah, and she was
just like
already planning to leave
the other
too.
ones work job. Yeah, and he's constantly berating all of them and accusatory that they don't live adult lives, they don't have jobs, they don't have responsibilities, when between them they had like 5 jobs, longevity at those jobs, vehicles and their own expenses and things of that nature. I mean, it's like, who the hell is he talking about?
Right.
Those aren't the same 3 people that are sitting in front of us.
Yeah. So the way we left it that night, basically, okay, everything was fine, even though I knew it would never hold, because it didn't before. He seemed to be cool with everybody. He wasn't expecting anyone to leave. He was talking about maybe negotiating things as far as rent, but overall, things seem to be stable. He did mention the cats. The cats were already out, by the way, by this point. They were already staying with you
Yep.
at our friend's place.
Yep.
But he mentioned the cats. He's like, I assume the cats are already gone. I haven't seen them. And I'm like, no, they just hang out in our room, same as always. They're here. And I remember that was the one thing where I felt like he didn't believe me. He didn't push the issue, but I remember thinking, I don't think he believes me. But who knows? And of course, he was drunk while all this was happening, as usual. He'd been drinking. He was stumbling around a little bit while we were talking. But everything ended pretty friendly. And everything ended with the understanding that, everything ended with the understanding that, okay, he didn't want anyone to move. No one had to move. But he never once, as always, never once asked about you, how you were feeling, how you were doing. Nothing.
It doesn't surprise me.
Nothing.
It doesn't surprise me.
After I told him that you were no longer living there full time because you were upset and uncomfortable and all this, and how his behavior, I tried to soft pedal it so as not to upset him like I was attacking him, but trying to explain how, you didn't feel uncomfortable around him and all this. And he never once, still zero taking responsibility for anything on his part. And that's kind of how we left it that night. And again, just like when I emailed him and I said we had no intentions, I felt shitty because I'm not a sneaky person. I don't like being deceptive, and I was actively deceiving him by playing it cool like nothing was going to change, and I hated it, but I felt it was necessary. So I certainly don't feel guilty about it in hindsight, but in the
There's
moment,
nothing
though,
wrong with self-protection.
it didn't feel good, though.
Self-protection should always be the first go-to.
Absolutely. And it
First-
sucked that he
first
put
and
us in that
foremost
position.
Is protecting oneself and one's property, and you
Right.
do what you got to do
Right.
in order to do that. And we just needed to get to the right date when we had access to trucks, people, and could put everything in our new home.
Yeah. So then, after that was done, we all went back in our rooms, and he emailed me and said, this is when he emailed me and said, do you think I should explain to Jen what I explained to you tonight, or do you want to do it? And I wrote back, and I said, let me do it first, and we'll take it from there. But yes, I think it would be wonderful for the two of you to have that dialogue, so I'll try to make that happen. And thanks, by the way, I'm glad we talked again. And, of course, I knew that dialogue with you and it was never going to happen. I'm trying to play it cool.
He doesn't give two shits about how I'm doing.
No, he just wants to talk to you so he can explain to you his side. That's all he wants. He doesn't want to hear you out. Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, it's
No.
all about him.
And I had a horrible treatment, and thankfully I did rebound, but I looked like death.
Yeah.
The day of the treatment. No care, no compassion, no nothing. He just wants me to understand that his feelings were hurt.
Right,
Well,
yeah. That's all he cares
and they
about.
weren't hurt by me or anything that had to do with me. I
Right.
was asleep the entire time.
I know, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, I got drug into this by getting emailed in the hospital
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I was inpatient, because the next day, unfortunately, things got worse, and I ended up in the hospital for a few days. You know, that's how I got dragged into this whole debacle.
Yeah.
It was, and there was never. And you know, we'll keep reading and we'll keep the series going to see if there's ever an acknowledgement of anyone but.
Yeah. So I said, I'm glad we talked again. He wrote back and said, I am too. I don't want either of you to leave, but I also don't want to feel uncomfortable at home either. To prove that point, I will start leaving my door open again. And once again, it wasn't a one-night thing. It was an ever-growing thing. And that was that. Of course, leaving his door open, he had promised that after the last time we talked. Didn't happen. And once again, didn't happen. No leaving open of his door.
Nope.
But that does conclude July 23rd. that was it. The big summit too.
It only took what 3 days.
Yeah, and then so we'll conclude with that. We'll conclude this episode
Yes.
with that. But there is more to come. Oh, there's plenty more to come.
Much
So,
more.
So in the meantime, if you have a roommate who doesn't care about your feelings, what would you do?
What would you do? Night.
Good night.
IPMNation.com.